Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And after several months of farming free XP, a month of grinding out snowflakes, and a little bit of cashola thrown in at the end, I finally have acquired the Tier 10 Japanese cruiser, the Kitakami. And, you ain't missing anything, fellas. There's no rush to get this ship. They said they're going to reintroduce her in 2 years. That's plenty of time. Don't worry about it. You're not missing much at all, as I'm sure you've heard from other Warships YouTubers, but I'm not a CC, so I didn't get this thing early. So, today was my first day of actually playing the ship, and I played it quite a bit, and yeah, it ain't it, fellas. But we're still going to talk about it today because I have it now, and well, it's a ship that many of us have been waiting quite some time for to come back into the game, and yeah. So let's talk about the grind, shall we? The grind wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, with me farming free XP pretty much, the day after they announced she was coming back in the Salvage for Victory event, and with, of course, a huge fleet that I have with the Snowflake event going on. It wasn't too difficult to get the resources I needed, and of course with the Snowflake event ending the day before the update, I grinded out the last of my snowflakes that I could get, and then converted the rest of the free XP that I needed in order to reset the Hiruguma line for the umpteenth time to get those sweet Research Bureau points. And, well, then I got the Kitakami. Now, the Kitakami event itself doesn't end until February 3rd. I got the dates confused in my head. I thought it ended with the update, which clearly it didn't. So, you still have until then to get this ship. So I probably could have really got it for like, I don't know, just by doing all the things in the rest of the month of January that I could do to get coal. I probably really could have got it for way cheaper than $50. But, $50 for a tier 10 premium ship, that's really not bad, the quality of the premium aside, because those normally go for like $130, so not a terrible deal in my mind. But again, it's not a great ship anyway. So if you are like an average Joe, though, I can imagine the grind for this probably just isn't possible, again, because of the amount of resources that you need. But it's going to come out in 2 years, and again, you're not missing anything in those 2 years at all. So the ship itself, though, yeah, when they up-tiered Jaeger to tier 9 and made that an excellent torpedo boat, you would think they would be able to do the same thing with the Kitakami, but nope. Nope. Now, of course, the main gimmick of Kitakami is just the absolute vomit that it can put out in terms of torpedo spam. You have 40 torpedoes on the ship, which is an absurd amount, and that's why it was pulled in the first place, because that's just ridiculous, right? And they wanted to make darn sure that they were not going right back into an old Kitakami situation when they reintroduced this ship, because oh my god, it is just terrible. It's terrible, guys. Look, I'm not the world's best torpedo boat captain. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I am, but dear god, is this thing just miserable to play. So the big balancing gimmick that they use on the Kitakami is the torpedo loading team, whatever you want to call it. It's the same mechanic that is present on the submarines, how you have, a crew that'll reload one torpedo tube at a time. Like, let's say you have 6 torp tubes in the front of your submarine, and you've got 3 loading crews, right? You got 2 in the front 2 tubes, and you got 1 crew in the back tube. So they'll load each tube one at a time. They applied that same thing here to the Kitakami, but you only have 2 loading crews, 1 per side. What I think is hilarious is that they're implying that the crew that finishes loading up, like, let's say you fire all your port side torpedoes, but you haven't fired your starboard side torpedoes. They're implying that the crew's too lazy to walk to the other side of the ship and start helping the other side load their torpedoes. I think that's funny, but yeah. And the reload time, if you build into it as much as you can get it down to 52 seconds. Well, I'm sorry, 62 seconds. So a minute and 2 seconds is your quickest reload time base. And of course, like, you throw Adrenaline Rush on top of that. Obviously, that's going to make it a little bit faster. And if you somehow manage to use Yamamoto and proc his Kraken skill, then yeah, you can technically get it down to like a 30-ish second reload. But that's under extreme circumstances, right? But anyway, yes, you gotta wait a minute and 2 seconds for one set of torpedoes to load per side. And that's just pain. It takes a little over 5.5 minutes, or a little under 5.5 minutes, for your torpedoes to fully load. So, best case scenario, you can completely launch all of your torpedo tubes 4 times in a match. And I'm talking about, like, you get done loading the last set of torpedoes, you spam one side, flip around, spam the other side, and then you gotta wait another 5 minutes. And since the matches are 20 minutes, Western maximum time, I should say, you can 4 times, and again, best case scenario, spam a complete wall of 40 torpedoes. Given that most games don't last that long, you can maybe get, like, 2 full spams out if you really want to. What usually winds up happening is that, well, by the time you get into the action, you have maybe 2 torpedoes per side loaded. So you get, 2 tubes off on one side, rotate around, get the other set of tubes off, and now you're waiting again. So, yeah, it's just kind of miserable. And the torpedoes aren't overly fantastic. The more usable ones, the 12-kilometer ones, they are okay. They only do 13,600 maximum damage. They do travel 95 knots, though, again, with, if you build into them. So that's a very comfortable speed. I'll give them that. And the 12-kilometer range isn't bad either. Like, I could get it to work, and they do certainly give you the tools to attempt to get it to work here on the Kitakami. Like, the ship's protection range, if you build into it, 7.9 kilometers. That's not terrible. And they do give you the exhaust smoke with a quick reload time, too. It only takes 72 seconds to reload, so that's pretty workable. And you get a 3-minute engine boost that gives you a 15% boost to your speed, which gets you going at 42 knots. Well, actually, I think it's like 43 knots and change. So, like, all that sounds pretty good on paper. But then when you try to do that and play it close and use these 12-kilometer torps in game, it really doesn't work out unless you have a lot going for you. Because, first off, getting within 12 kilometers of a ship at tier 10 is kind of sketchy. Especially when you're in a light cruiser like the Kitakami with a Citadel. That's kind of, nerve-wracking. And you might say, well, you have the exhaust smoke. Yes, you do have the exhaust smoke, and sure, when you can use it, it's pretty good. It's not a very long duration, but it's definitely long enough for you to, poke within your detection range within 7.9 kilometers of the enemy, and then pop your engine boost and run away. It does last long enough for that. But it's like, well, how many times do you get into a tier 10 match and there's absolutely no radar? Yeah. And that radar is 12 kilometers a lot of times, especially with like the Soviet radar. So that's your torpedo range right there. So that's suboptimal. And then 2, it's like, well, how many times are you going to get spotted by planes? Well, probably a lot, especially given that the American CVs are in early access right now, and apparently everyone and their mom wants to play them. So you get spotted by planes, and now the players on the enemy team know, hey, there's a Kitakami on this side. We should definitely shoot it when it pops up, and be aware that there are probably torpedoes in the water heading toward us right now. And yeah, that's a lot of matches where there's CVs that'll keep you spotted, there's radar ships, and despite having a good concealment of 7.9 kilometers for a light cruiser, I mean, like, there's still DDs with better concealment. And unlike other light cruisers, most DDs aren't afraid of you because your armor is so thin they can citadel you with their guns using just AP. And all your guns are in the front of your ship in this very wonky configuration, and they're 140mm guns with a 3-second reload, which, granted, I have actually used them to quite decent effect in the Kitakami, surprisingly. But, they're all in the front, so if you turn to, flee the situation, disengage, you don't have any guns to shoot at the destroyers that might be shooting you, or the other light cruisers, they're just bullying you. And the AA is just a joke. You get 2 26 or 25mm AA guns, and that's literally it. Like, you literally have 4 guns. 4 25mm guns. That is it. they didn't touch the AA when they bumped this up to higher tier. So CVs, if you're not sitting with an AA buddy, can literally just do whatever they want with you. So if you do get into a match where there's either no radar cruisers, no CVs, and the DDs aren't trying to push up and spot for their team, sure, the ship can perform quite well. However, in most cases, you're going to have one of those things happening. Another thing is that, of course, since it's a torpedo cruiser, getting the right angles is everything. Trying to, get to the side of the enemy ships to where, you're chucking your torpedoes at good angles to where there aren't islands in the way, and, you're hopefully going undetected so that the enemy ships don't know you're there. That's a big part of, torpedo boat gameplay. And that's not an easy thing to do in the Kitakami at all. It just so much has to go right for this ship to do well. It doesn't really happen too much, but I did have some moments in this ship. I giggled a couple of times, I'd say it would be an okay meme boat if it was just like for coal or something. Like, yeah, if you wait 5 minutes, you can launch the Great Wall of Skill, right? And that is going to do something. And you do have the deep water torpedoes that do go out to 20 kilometers, but 75 knots, so that's not great. But, you can catch some battleships like, and I did quite a few times with it. So, those are a little bit more usable. But, I don't know. I just wish maybe if they gave it, like, standard deep waters where they could still hit, like, cruisers, or at least heavy cruisers at that 20 kilometer range. I feel like that would make it a little bit more usable. Or if they made it to where, like, again, at the starboard side, torpedo tubes are done loading, that loading crew can hop on over to the port side and help them out. I think that would make it a lot more usable as well. Even if they did both of those changes, I don't think the ship would be anywhere near overpowered at all, because you're still taking, 5 minutes to load your torpedoes on one side, and just because you don't use those guys, you can use the crew on the other side to help load. It's still a long load time for torpedoes either way, right? So yeah, I think either of those two things would be a nice little quality of life improvement for the Kitakami. But like overall, again, I know the event doesn't end until February 3rd, and if you can get it for like under $60, about the price of a tier 8 premium, I'd say yeah, go ahead, use the old conversion method to convert your ship XP over to free XP, then reset your Harugo line a couple of times to get the research bureau points that you need to complete it. If you can get it for what is essentially a third of the cost it's probably going to be whenever they re-release it, I'd say yeah, go for it. But there's no need to kill yourself with trying to grind the event to get this ship before it leaves. Trust me, you're not missing anything. If anything, wait for Jaeger to come back. It's a much better torpedo boat for its tier than the Kitakami. So yeah, and there's a good chance a lot of you already have your Kitakami too right now, because the Snowflake event's over, and that's what I was using to get all my resources that I needed for it. But I just want to give my 2 cents on the ship. It's probably going to sit in my port for a long time, and if I feel like playing something goofy, I'll break it out. So it's in the realm of goofy ships for me, but it's not like a good goofy ship like the Incomparable. It's a one-trick pony. And unlike the Apollo Emilio, it's not one hell of a trick. It's just kind of like, oh, that's kind of funny. And you do get some chuckle moments out of it every now and then by some of the weird torpedo hits that you do get. But yeah, no need to kill yourself getting this one, guys. At least in my opinion. So let me know what you guys think about the Kitakami in the comments down below if you have acquired her. And if you agree or disagree, just let me know down there below. Hope you guys enjoyed and have a wonderful Thursday. If you did enjoy, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 75,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday again. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.